Hi guys, today I'm going to review the Lenovo Yoga 210 and I already did review the predecessor, the 10HD Plus a few months ago, but I wanted to check if this is a worthy successor or not. So let's start it, let's damn it. Let's start off with the first unique thing, what makes it the Yoga, and that would be this hinge, because you have 4 modes available now, and let me show you quickly what those 4 modes are. The first one is just hold it like this and you have the tablet mode. The second mode, if you open this hinge, you have some sort of media mode now where you can use it some sort to watch movies and so on. You also have this kind of presentation mode. And the fourth mode you now have with this hole is the hang mode. And the person who actually made this a fourth legit mode maybe should be hung himself. I'm just joking, yeah, because it doesn't hurt and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Doesn't make any sense, but neither does this mode. But let's get over to the ports and check a few other things right now. On the left hand side, we have the volume rocker, the micro USB and the power button. At the bottom here is nothing. On the right hand side we have the headphone jack, the microphone, and on the top there's also nothing. At the back we can see this hinge, here is the camera, and if we open this hinge you will see a micro SD card slot and also a SIM card tray if this would be the LTE version. My first thoughts, what I like and what I don't like so much about, because if you use it in tablet mode with 16:10 it looks a bit awkward and it also feels awkward to use. And due to this weird thicker part here, it is also not that convenient to use in presentation mode after all. But what about the design and the build quality? If we check it here, this thing is a little bit loose. I don't know, you can hear it, but it's definitely noticeable. And what I also don't like, if you lay it on the table with the aluminum here, you will hear this, and this is a bit of a weird sound. I don't like it a lot, because they should have made it a little bit rubberized. Otherwise, here it is a little bit shallow. The plastic also doesn't really feel premium. So in overall, what do we have? We have some kind of nice tablet mode which still feels awkward. We have a good media position here. This is quite nice because it is also flexible. That is nice, but therefore what you have to have a few downsides would be the weight. It is definitely quite on the heavier side. It feels a little bit lighter than the predecessor, but still is on the heavy side, and it is awkward to hold in landscape mode. The quality and design overall is okay and definitely not a deal breaker, but it is also nothing that special anymore these days. The next thing in line to talk about is the display. We have a 10.1 inch display with a resolution of 1920 by 1200 and the 16:10 ratio. And if we take a closer look, in terms of sharpness, it looks quite nice, but if you take a closer look at those contrasting colors, you will notice a lot of over sharpening happening. I don't like so much. But if you have normal like ebooks with black on white, things look quite nice and there's not really anything to complain. Otherwise, in terms of the whites, those are absolutely convincing, really nicely balanced. And maybe the one thing that isn't so great is the maximum brightness, which could be a bit higher, but in normal situation it's quite nice. As for the blacks, absolutely convincing, nice and deep, nothing to complain here. Colors are also quite nice, not oversaturated but also not washed out or dull. They make a quite nice appearance. Same goes for the viewing angles. As you can see, you lose a little bit, but it is really nothing to complain at all. So in overall, I have to say the display without the over sharpen happening would be a really nice display, because colors and whites are really nicely balanced, but with this over sharpening is just because of that just slightly above average after all. So we maybe don't have the best display out there, but what about the speakers? We have stereo front facing speakers here, and I will give you a demo just so you can see how the sound is. The microphone is up here, so it is quite a natural distance from your ears, so let's check it. Hi guys, today I got something special for you, because the end is near, and I mean the end of the year. And what I wanted to show here in this video, this was without Dolby. I will turn on the Dolby now and you should maybe notice quite a big difference, and I will tell you why. Because a lot of people, a lot of YouTubers right there out now give you recommendations what you should buy to the end of this year. I wanted it to do a little bit different and just... So I think it was quite obvious, because once you turn on the Dolby mode, everything will get loud and it will sound better at the first moment, but you could also hear it maybe. There is a lot of distortion happening. So turn that off. And what about the sound then? The maximum volume isn't convincing, even though it even though it should be quite loud since we have a thick device here, but it isn't. The overall maximum volume isn't good. There also isn't really a lot of bass. The mids are okay, and it is still mostly just trebles. So in overall, I can say it is a good speaker. It is okay, it gets the sound over, but it still feels kind of muffled sounding compared to any other device I tried so far, and I'm just not convinced, and the sound really is even weaker than the displays. So the display and the sound maybe weren't that impressive, but after all we have the Intel Z3745 in here, which impressed the hell out of me in the Acer Konya Tab A I just recently reviewed. So is this still the case? We will see if we take a closer look. Right here in the browser, if you can see here when we scroll, it is okay, but it is far from that what I've seen on the Acer Konya Tab, which is quite surprising for me because it looks quite choppy and the rendering times are also not the best. It looks a little bit better here in video than it is in reality, but still, yeah. If we check Phoenix, for example, that is one of the more convincing apps because that one looks actually quite nice. One app that doesn't look so great is Amber. As you can see, the scrolling is quite choppy and not really impressive. I see a lot of lag happening, so not impressed. And the worst thing here is Google Plus. Of course, we know Google Plus is very resource intensive, but what I see here just doesn't impress me. Same goes for the multitasking. It works quite okay, but it just doesn't always do what you want it to do. As you can see here, it is okay in overall, but I have to say I am quite disappointed in terms of the performance, because coming from the Acer Konya Tab, I expected a lot of good things happening here. I didn't see any of them because there is a lot of lag, there is a lot of stutteriness, and it just feels very slowed down, which is, I think, the most part because of the software, which I will talk about now. So in the performance part, I just did mention I'm not so happy with the software, and let me show you exactly why. Because if we take a closer look here, we don't have an app drawer. This is quite a letdown because on Android you are really used to it. Otherwise, in terms of the design, it is okay. This is the notification drawer. The quick settings are at the bottom, always accessible, quite nice. We have a few extra options like Dolby, which I already told is not that great. We have multi-window, which I wouldn't recommend since the performance isn't good already. And if we take a look into the settings, we are running Android 4.4.2. and that is no problem. Otherwise, we have a few little enhancements, but in overall, I have to say I'm not that happy with the software, mostly because of the app drawer and what they did to the software, because the whole software feels very unoptimized and unpolished. It just doesn't feel smooth, and what they did in compared to the last model, the 10HD Plus, they took off the app drawer and they did a heavy theming, which they didn't on the old model, and I'm not really sure why, because right now it feels very burdened by the new software. I hope they can fix this, but I don't think they will, because at least in my personal opinion, I think this is the biggest issue why the performance is so bad after all, and I don't want to go into detail about all the enhanced features because the software as it is right now is working. Barely. Okay, it's time for the recap, and maybe you did notice I didn't talk about the battery life at all, but I will explain why shortly. But first off, let's start with the design and the build quality. It has this nice little stand mode, it is quite okay, but therefore you have some other downsides, like it feels a bit awkward to use in portrait mode, and it doesn't feel any better in landscape either. So in terms of the build quality itself, I have to say it feels a little bit cheap here, and also the scratchy aluminum on the table is something I'm just not the biggest fan of. It doesn't feel bad, but it doesn't feel premium either. As for the display, it would have been a really nice display, nicely balanced in terms of colors and whites and blacks, but the over sharpen that is happening just makes it slightly above average, which is a little bit disappointing. What is a little bit more disappointing though is the sound, because it doesn't feel rich, it feels quite flat. The experience just isn't good, it isn't immersive. It distorts quite easily, and it just doesn't sound really that well either. I would have expected more since you have a quite thick device, but they couldn't deliver. And where they couldn't deliver also as well is the performance, because the performance is, I think, the biggest issue here on this device. It felt very sluggish, very burdened by the software, very choppy and stuttery, and it didn't come over that well on the video, but it didn't feel well while using it. Always felt like I had to force myself to use it. And this also brings me to the way why I didn't test the battery, or I didn't give you any battery stats, because as I said, I had to force myself to use this device because the experience just wasn't that great, and therefore I don't have enough usage to tell you a lot about the battery, but from what I saw, the battery life is definitely worse than on the 10 HD Plus, which was good for 10 or 11 hours of screen on time, and this one I would say maybe good for 6 or 7 hours from what I also saw on other reviews. So the battery took a hit, I think mostly due to the Intel chipset, because I noticed it uses turbo mode way too often and this drains way too much, I would say. But another reason that could be a reason for that could be the software, because the software feels very unpolished, just not ready for the mainstream market or for prime time yet. We don't have an app drawer, which is very unknown to Android, and if you want to have an Android device and don't get it, it just feels very odd. I don't know why they did this. Also, like some other features they did multi-window, but with that performance it is nice to have it, but if it's not usable it doesn't make a lot of sense, and that's why I didn't even talk about that much about it, the software, because the software is not the biggest issue, but it is also a big letdown, mostly because I think it burdens down the performance and it just doesn't deliver you a great experience if you are known to other skins on Android either as well. And as for the qualities in overall, would I recommend this device now? And I have to say I would highly recommend not to buy this device, because if you maybe saw the 10 HD Plus, it is very often on deals available now, and I would say this is the better option. I wouldn't really say this is a downgrade, but it is definitely not an upgrade. Battery life and performance are better on the 10 HD Plus, I would say, and this doesn't make up for this being a new device. So I don't really know why Lenovo thought they had to release this device so closely after the 10 HD Plus, especially if they didn't really improve anything. And I want to say thanks to Lenovo for sending me out this review unit, and I'm very sorry I had to give it such a bad review, but if you would have delivered a better device, the review would also have been better. So I hope you are not mad about that, but I have to tell the truth, and what I see on this device is just something I would have liked not to see. So as for this was my review of the Lenovo Yoga 210. I hope it was helpful for you and I hope you liked it, so give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.